Greetings, I'm Anna, and I'd like to share a significant episode from my life that led to my recent divorce at 32 years old. I navigated the aftermath of my marriage with Charles, my now ex-husband. Our living conditions played a pivotal role in the unraveling of our marriage. We lived in a simple home alongside Charles's mother, Kathleen. Despite the common advice against living with in-laws, we had little choice given our financial situation. We weren't wealthy by any means. Our finances were modest, hovering on the edge of just getting by. Let's take a step back for a moment. Charles and I crossed paths at a speakeasy, where it was love at first sight. After 3 years of dating, we chose to elope, bypassing the traditional wedding. Kathleen had been living with us since the beginning of our marriage. Initially, her presence was challenging, but such is the nature of relationships with in-laws, or so I thought. Despite the ups and downs, Charles and I managed to maintain a steady relationship, understanding that marriage isn't always perfect. However, 3 years into our marriage, our dynamics began to change. I came home from work one day to find Charles and Kathleen visibly stressed. Charles had just lost his job due to company cutbacks, placing him in the daunting position of finding new employment. This news was a blow to our already tight financial situation. Despite my reassurance that Charles would find another job soon, the reality hit us hard. With Charles out of work, the financial burden fell solely on me. We were living from one paycheck to the next, but I was prepared to use my savings to cover our immediate expenses, including our mortgage. This decision meant postponing my dream of starting a handcrafted ceramics business, but prioritizing our basic needs seemed like the only option. I was ready to contribute whatever was necessary, appreciating the gravity of our situation. However, the conversation took a turn when Kathleen suggested that I hand over my entire paycheck to her, claiming she had more experience managing our household finances. This moment highlighted a significant strain in our relationship, marking the beginning of the end of my marriage at that moment. I was unsure and conflicted. The request to surrender my entire monthly earnings to Kathleen, Charles's mother, under the guise of her managing our finances, left me uneasy. It was presented as though she was merely looking out for our collective well-being. Reluctantly, I agreed to contribute to our household expenses, but insisted on a transparent and fair approach to managing the funds. I was not ready to relinquish control over my income without understanding how it would be used. Kathleen proposed taking charge of the bills, suggesting I focus solely on earning. This arrangement was hastily agreed upon, despite my request for time to process the situation. With Charles's job loss, I found myself the sole earner, and suddenly my financial plans, including my dream of launching an online handcrafted ceramic store, were overshadowed by immediate family necessities. However, as time passed, it became apparent that Kathleen and Charles were becoming too comfortable relying on my earnings despite my reservations. I handed over my salary, trusting Kathleen to manage our essential expenses. Initially, the arrangement seemed to work. The mortgage and groceries were covered. Yet within 2 weeks, our supplies dwindled faster than anticipated, forcing us to dip into my savings earlier than planned. To my dismay, Charles and Kathleen's spending began to spiral. Charles justified unnecessary expenditures and personal getaways with friends as stress relief, while Kathleen indulged in luxury shopping and home decor far removed from our agreed-upon essentials. Their actions reflected a blatant disregard for our precarious financial state, prioritizing short-term pleasures over our long-term stability and my personal savings goals. During this challenging period, Charles's demeanor towards job hunting shifted dramatically. Instead of actively seeking employment, he seemed to embrace a carefree lifestyle funded by my hard-earned money. This lack of effort and responsibility on his part was disheartening. Initially, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, understanding the need for a break after a job loss. However, as weeks turned into months without any sign of him looking for work, my patience wore thin. This situation illuminated the stark contrast between our attitudes towards financial management and responsibility. While I was striving to secure our future, even at the cost of my dreams, Charles and Kathleen appeared to prioritize their immediate desires and comforts, further straining our relationship and financial stability. A whole month slipped by, and Charles hadn't shown any inclination to start job hunting. The reality was that bills were piling up, and my savings were dwindling. It was time for a heart-to-heart, so I approached Charles. "Charles, we need to have a serious conversation. I've noticed you haven't begun looking for work yet. When do you plan to start? Our savings are finite, and we need to think about our future." I initiated, hoping to spark some urgency in him. He responded with a nonchalance that stung. "I'll start looking soon. Can't I just enjoy a moment's peace without being lectured?" I tried to explain my concerns more clearly. "I understand you need your space, but the money spent on your outings and your mom's shopping spree is coming out of my pocket. It might help if you talk to her about limiting her expenses as well." Charles's frustration became evident as he retorted, "Don't act like you're in charge just because you're the one earning right now. I'll apply for jobs in my own time. Don't pressure me into doing things before I'm ready." I couldn't help but bring my aspirations into the conversation, hoping to find common ground. "Charles, my dreams are important too. It's not just about my ambitions. Starting my business could benefit all of us. But with our current financial bleed, I'm really worried about our future. Can you not see the bigger picture here and help out for our collective good?" His dismissive reply cut deep. "Save me your sob story, Anna. If you can't manage our simple needs, how do you plan to run a business? Perhaps your plans aren't as solid as you thought." "It's not about having a perfect plan, Charles. It's about making an effort, something you should consider too for the sake of all of us," I countered, trying to make him see reason. His next words were a clear dismissal. "I don't need a sermon from you, Anna. You don't run things here. Now leave me alone. I want to watch TV in peace." Another month rolled by after our talk, and it was as if my words had evaporated the moment they were spoken. No job applications, no attempts to contribute, nothing but growing frustration for me. Meanwhile, his mother's extravagant spending continued to drain my savings at an alarming rate. Half of my savings had vanished, and it seemed like I was caught in a never-ending cycle of financial strain, watching my dreams and security slip through my fingers. My frustration was reaching a boiling point when things took an even more dramatic turn. "Anna, we need to have a chat." Kathleen approached me with a tone that immediately raised my alarm. "I hope you're not going to be upset, but I couldn't help myself and used the check you gave me for a fabulous new sofa. Now we need to cover the mortgage this month with your savings." I was taken aback. "Seriously, Kathleen, that seems incredibly irresponsible. You know we're struggling to make ends meet, and you decided to buy a sofa." Kathleen's response was breezy. "I know, but it was such a bargain I couldn't resist, and it's a stunning gray sofa that'll look great in our living room. It's already on its way." "We didn't need a new sofa, Kathleen. This is not the time for such expenses," I protested, trying to keep my cool. "But we did need it. Now that it's bought, we just have to deal with it. It's going to enhance the living room significantly. Now, about the mortgage money, her expectation for me to just cover the expenses because it was my job as the provider, especially as her daughter-in-law, was baffling. Reluctantly, I agreed but made it clear this couldn't happen again. "This is the last time, Kathleen. We have to be more mindful about where our money goes." This incident highlighted the harsh reality of our financial predicament. Kathleen's spending had nearly drained my savings, and Charles seemed indifferent, lost in his world of leisure. Our relationship was barely hanging by a thread, with communication all but broken down. As time wore on, my savings dwindled to a mere few thousand. When I brought this up with Kathleen and Charles, their lackadaisical response was for me to do whatever it takes to keep the money coming. They seemed fine as long as their comfort was undisturbed, leaving me to juggle our finances alone, faced with no other options and the weight of financial responsibility solely on my shoulders. I made a difficult decision for our collective welfare. I sold our only family car. It wasn't a move made out of whim or for personal gain, but a desperate measure to keep us afloat a little longer. In a moment of desperate need, I made the difficult choice to sell our family car. My salary was stretched to its limits, struggling to cover even a month's groceries after the mortgage payment, not to mention other essential bills. So after one tiring day at work, I found myself walking home, an action that would soon ignite a storm. "Why are you walking home today? What happened to the car?" Charles asked, confused by my arrival on foot. Taking a deep breath, I confessed, "I didn't bring it up earlier, but I sold the car today. It seemed none of you were concerned about our financial situation, even though you both told me to do whatever was necessary. Given our dire financial state, selling the car felt like the right move." "You sold the family car. How could you decide that on your own?" Charles exclaimed, disbelief and anger mixing in his voice. "It wasn't a decision made lightly," I defended. "It was a practical choice. I was the only one using it for work anyway, and now I'll have to figure out an alternative." "This is unacceptable, Anna. Remember, you're just living here because you're my son's wife. How dare you sell it without asking us?" Kathleen chimed in, her tone dripping with disapproval. "It was necessary. We needed the money to get by, at least until Charles can find work." I reasoned, trying to explain the direness of our situation. The conversation spiraled downward from there, with Kathleen accusing me of being overly dependent and not capable of managing our finances, let alone starting a business. They demanded I leave the house immediately and hand over the money from the car sale. "Before going, I've been supporting both of you for months, and this is how you repay me," I protested, my frustration boiling over. "Where am I supposed to go, especially without enough money? I've invested everything in supporting this household." Ignoring my pleas, they insisted I leave that very night, giving me an hour to pack my things. In a state of shock, and with tears clouding my vision, I hurried to my room. I packed essentials, clothes, anything I could grab in my panicked state. With only $200 to my name, the result of their earlier demands, I was left to face an uncertain future alone, heartbroken by their betrayal and the harsh reality of my situation. After selling the car and facing such a harsh reaction, I was left completely bewildered, unsure of my next steps. My circle of close friends was virtually non-existent, leaving me with the daunting prospect of reaching out to my father. Our relationship had been strained, to say the least, since my mother's passing, and we hadn't spoken since my wedding. With few alternatives, I decided to call my dad for help. Packing what little I had, I made my way to the bus station, purchasing a ticket with a heavy heart. The journey felt endless, stretching on for 5 hours until I finally arrived at my dad's doorstep, nervous and uncertain. I knocked on the door, half expecting him to turn me away. "Hey, Dad, it's me. I know we haven't seen each other in a while, and I never intended to just show up, but I didn't know where else to go," I managed to say when he answered. To my relief, he greeted me with concern rather than anger. "Oh, honey, hi. Are you okay? You look exhausted. Don't worry about it. Come in. Let's catch up," he said, ushering me inside. The living room was a familiar sight, comforting even. My dad had kept up pictures of me and my mom, which was heartwarming to see. After settling in and getting a glass of water, we began to catch up. I opened up about everything that had happened: Charles losing his job, the financial pressure falling entirely on me, and the escalation that led to my being kicked out. Charles became too comfortable not working, and Kathleen, she just went through my savings like it was nothing. I tried talking to them, but it was like speaking to a wall. In the end, I sold our car to keep us afloat, but they kicked me out anyway. Now I'm here without a plan or a place to go. I hate to ask, but could I stay for a few days to figure things out? I explained, feeling both vulnerable and relieved to finally share my burden. That's terrible. How could they treat you like that? My dad expressed his disbelief in sympathy. Look, Anna, I know we haven't been close, especially since your mom passed away. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to improve myself, and I've been thinking about reaching out to you these past few months. Hearing this was a small solace in the storm of my life. It seemed like, despite everything, I might have found a temporary haven and a chance to mend bridges with my dad. After everything that had happened, my dad admitted he hadn't dared to reach out to me before, feeling guilty for how we had grown apart. My unexpected arrival seemed to him a chance to start repairing our relationship. You're welcome to stay as long as you need, he offered, a gesture that warmed my heart amidst the turmoil, grateful. I assured him I wouldn't impose for too long. Settling into my dad's home brought an initial awkwardness, given the long period we'd spent apart. Yet gradually we found ourselves easing into a comfortable rhythm, reconnecting in a way I hadn't anticipated. It was as if we were rediscovering our bond, making the atmosphere at home increasingly warm and familiar. In a turn of events, I ended up receiving a resignation letter from my job. My dad encouraged me to stay and look for new opportunities nearby. It wasn't something I had planned, but the idea of being close to him and rebuilding our relationship was appealing. Before long, our time together had us reminiscing, bringing back memories of the dad I knew in my teenage years. Then I landed a new job. Sharing the news with my dad brought a sense of achievement and gratitude. That's fantastic, honey. I'm so proud of you, he beamed. In that moment of support, he even suggested investing in my dream of starting my own business. He saw it as a chance for me to pursue my passions without the burden of rent, a proposal that left me speechless. Despite his generous offer, I hesitated, feeling he had already done more than enough. What's mine is yours, Anna. Think about it, he urged, insisting that investing in my future was a priority for him. Our conversation then shifted to Charles. He reached out, but I'm considering a divorce, I confided, marking a pivotal decision in my life. My dad's support during this time not only offered me a sanctuary, but also helped me envision a path forward, one where I could finally focus on my growth and aspirations, needing time to focus on myself. I embraced my dad's generous offer and threw myself into realizing my dream of starting a business. This venture, something I had always dreamed of, suddenly felt within reach. I quickly got to work sourcing materials, planning my first product batch, and even hiring a graphics designer and a few employees. Balancing this new endeavor with my part-time job was challenging, but I was determined. My dedication paid off. People started noticing my creations, and with the right marketing strategies, orders began to roll in. Managing both a job and my budding business was tough, but after about a year and a half, my life had transformed remarkably. My side hustle had become my main source of income, offering me a sense of financial stability I had never known before. Charles and Kathleen had become distant memories. The clarity that time brings made it evident I deserved better than their mistreatment. Deciding it was time for a change, I initiated divorce proceedings. The process wasn't easy, but it felt like a step towards freedom. Charles appeared indifferent to our divorce, unaware of my success, until I decided to make a bold statement. I drove up to their place in a sleek BMW to personally deliver the divorce papers, wanting them to see the strength and success I had achieved on my own. Their surprise was evident. "Whose car did you borrow, or are you working for rich people now?" Charles sneered, unable to believe the car was mine. "That car is mine, and it's thanks to my nonsensical store," I replied, revealing the source of my newfound success. Their disbelief turned to envy and desperation as Charles confessed to their financial struggles, hinting at a desire for my help. The irony was not lost on me. These were the same people who had used me and discarded me when they saw fit. Now, facing their hardships, they were looking to me for assistance. But after everything, I couldn't bring myself to support them. My focus was on my own life and future. The satisfaction of showing them what I had achieved without their toxic influence was indescribable. It was a clear reminder that distancing myself from those who failed to value me was the best decision I had made. Climbing the success ladder unburdened by their negativity was a liberating experience. Life was too short to be held back by those who never appreciated my worth, and I was now free to pursue my